I think that we have forgotten to lest we forget. I think lest we forget is probably even a biblical, I suspect it's biblical somewhere. And Rudyard Kipling used it in one of his poems in the late 19th century. Lest we forget. Lest we forget what? Well, it's an ignominious anniversary once more. The 11th, the 11, very significant number. 11, 11, 11, and 311, and 911, and 11 seems to come up. Well, this is the 11th anniversary of what I believe to be the greatest catastrophe ever in human history, possibly even in world history, from the point of view that even if you look into history of the planet having been on fire apparently for thousands of years, there was a time at which raging fires on Earth, supposedly, I mean, we can't, I don't know if geology can isolate and understand what happened in history, but even thousands of years of fires on Earth and devastation will not compare with the devastation at Fukushima and all other nuclear plants that are leaking their man-made isotopes into the environment, lest we forget. It's a very apropos phrase. I think we've forgotten. And the idea of lest we forget obviously applies to human loss, human life lost in wars, and soldiers talking about, people talking about soldiers and their service, and lest we forget. Well, we've forgotten. In fact, we never even remembered for even a split second Fukushima as societies, as a species. We have not been able to even create a context for this incredible epic event that happened. And you have many people who are admired, even in the, well, especially in the alternate media. I don't refer to the media that is the consensual media, but even in the alternate media. I just made a recent video on Owen Benjamin, who believes that belief is very important here, who believes, maybe he says he knows, I don't know how he would know, but I think he believes that the uranium is just warm rocks and they're not a danger to anyone. Nuclear energy is just boiling water, it's warm. So this is how you can transition into, or remove yourself from the lest we forget idea. I think it's quite overwhelming. People have a hard time being overwhelmed with the reality. I can identify to that, actually. I can identify with that, the idea of a reality being so overwhelming that you deny and you hide and you find distractions. And this is, I think, basically what motivates people to exist, mainly distractions, because it's so difficult to incorporate something like Fukushima, one of the worst disasters, and today is the 11th anniversary of that ignominious day, that plant blowing up, 3 reactors blowing up, and a fuel pool disappearing, exploding. And I'm just going to, my sense in relation to the reality that I'm in, my personal response to the reality I experience through information. I mean, this is obvious. We receive information. I've not been in Fukushima. So we see pictures, we see videos, we see reliable sources confirming a story. And Fukushima, in essence, to me, is a story. It's like anything that someone tells me that I haven't experienced myself is a story. And there is a level where I use my ability to think, reflect, conjure up explanations. A whole lot of things are active in me as soon as I hear a story. I love stories. I actually find myself motivated by the idea of people telling stories. This is ancient an ancient tradition of people sitting around the campfire telling each other stories. And sometimes there were even frightening stories. But this story no longer is something that qualifies to be lumped in with all the other stories. And there were some very difficult stories to comprehend, but this story is so extraordinary. And people who don't really think it's important, it doesn't really matter what people think about this. It's a reality that is unfolding every day for the last 11 years. Man-made nuclear isotopes disseminated into the environment. They're not just warm rocks. They're not things that just sort of dissipate and go away. Unfortunately, this is not conjecture. This is proven. This is actually part of science that, from the point of view of understanding something, actually works. Not like the COVID shit show science, where they can create stories and build a response around a story. This story is real. And we're subjected to the reality of this story, even though we haven't experienced it ourselves, like with our own eyes, but it's affecting us. It will affect all life on Earth for a very long time. And I challenge anyone to dispute the science that has been understood all the way back to Maxwell. People like Feynman, nuclear people who were involved in discovering this peculiar reality of radiation from a microscopic element. What is going on here? Madame Curie, who died of, I think she died of cancer. She did get to be in her 60s, but she was around radiation, glowing stuff. People that are around this glowing stuff have a tendency to die. I wonder why. They die. I wonder why. Lest we forget. This is an affliction. This is something that I've understood in my own sense of relating to a reality that's very difficult to absorb, lest we forget, becomes something we don't want to remember. And it's very difficult. I understand people who suffer, who go through experiences, or who even imagine going through experiences not wanting to deal with that reality. I understand that. So today, I won't make this really long. I just wanted to, with other souls of conscience that are aware of this reality, this ignominious anniversary. And there are things going on that distract us from the most important things in our life. And I haven't really spent, I was thinking about this, why I haven't continued to hammer away on this. And I think it's a question for me in terms of any kind of self-awareness that at a certain point, and this is something it's hard to understand for some people. Like you say, well, if you're aware of something, you have to become active. Well, the very thing of the awareness is an action in itself. That when you say to a person, you cannot make a person do anything they don't want to do. Like when people scream and shout, wake up, wake up. And there is this kind of aggressive way of presenting a position, even if it's righteous, even if that position is righteous, that you feel so right. The idea of bludgeoning someone into, wake up, or you bastards, why aren't you getting this? See how irrelevant that is. I was involved in that sort of presentation idea around Fukushima in the first 4 or 5 years. And I realized this is not going to get me or anyone anywhere, because there is an incredible resistance in people to listen to anyone that is abusive in their, or even aggressive, attacking for not accepting something. So as far as I'm concerned regarding Fukushima directly, is that an acceptance is the first step. And I think that once we internalize something that is obviously as important as Fukushima, or anything else for that matter, whatever is going on in the world around us, like this COVID shit show as well, that And I think there is quite a relationship between the COVID shit show and the Fukushima shit show. The COVID shit show is a fabrication, but the Fukushima isn't. But they overlap in a way because people are incapable of internalizing something they understand about this. And the reason it's difficult to internalize it is because there is in all of us a natural inclination, desire to do something about injustice and something that is wrong. So generally speaking, a person, I include myself, will deny and refuse to look at something because once I understand, my impulse, what comes naturally out of me is to stand up against something or fight for something or be in some form active. And here's what I've always said to people in terms of their position in relation to these events, these difficult to absorb events. And that is the first step towards being on the right side. Obviously, I love that idea of conscience, to be on the right side of something, is to first of all and primarily accept, and without any demands on oneself. You don't put a demand on yourself to do anything. The important thing is to just totally, completely abandon yourself to that understanding. You have an understanding. It's like this plant blew up, and based on the best knowledge and information that is provided, obviously we have to work on understanding stuff. So once that has happened and you understand to a level that you can totally absorb and internalize the truth of this situation, that is enough. I say, that is enough. I'm not going to stand in front of you, bludgeon you with wake up, wake up, wake up, because you can't make a person feel anything they don't want to feel. It's something that we come to on our own terms in our own time. I understand this. I've talked about this, which is why my experience in terms of the activism that I was involved in, my own position changed in terms of the effectiveness that I can have on the environment around me is to live my conviction, which is primarily to understand the severity of this event. That's how I've looked at it. And whatever actions come out of that, willingly, whatever I'm willing to do, and people can have judgment saying, you're not doing enough, or all you people should do more. This kind of stuff is irrelevant. The first step is to actually recognize, and whatever I can do in my own life with the people around me, is to create a level of tolerance of oneself when we're slow about taking things in. It's going to get a little too complex here. The simple way of putting it is, we're never ready to understand something. We cannot be pushed into understanding something. We come to it in our own terms. So there is no point in criticizing anybody for what it is they're not doing. And when I refer to the bastards out there, I think this has probably always been this tug of war between people of conscience that have understood something about themselves, that have internalized the importance of our existence, whatever that might be, on whatever level, on a spiritual level, on a physical level, whatever the importance of our reality might be. As soon as we begin to internalize that, we actually begin to act our conscience. That's how I think it works. So this struggle we have with the bastards, who primarily want us to think about everything else except what actually would matter to us. Like each person is distracted on so many different levels on what actually really matters. So this struggle exists. And I think what I would call it, other than lest we forget, that we have this struggle. We must do this inner work, lest we forget. We see the result. And lest we forget refers not to all the people that have suffered, but that is the intent of that phrase. But the idea behind lest we forget is lest we forget to do our inner work. Because the outside world does not exist without that inner world, without the inner work having been completed or being done, being actively sought, that we have to seek out that thing within us that actually defines the reality we experience. And just to finish this off, on this ignominious anniversary, there is a critical mass, a kind of critical mass psychology that goes on. I think, I don't know, I may be wrong. There is the idea that certain segments in a population that are so enlightened, I think this may come out of Buddhism, where you have a critical mass of a very small number of people, as few as maybe 10 or 50, who have a true sense of the reality as it emerges out of them, not like regurgitations from the bastards, but as it comes from them. There is a ripple effect that quite drastically changes everything around us. And this critical mass existence is a tug of war between, in this case, I'll say the bastards, who are attempting to derail us at every possible step, and to what extent, whatever that might be in the 21st century, it's social media, whatever those platforms and whatever those things we're confronted with that give us an opportunity to work on ourselves, within ourselves. This is the critical mass that we're establishing now. Like my channel is contributing to the critical mass of self-reflection that will actually, I do not ask anyone to do anything they don't want to do. All I'm saying is that once you reach that point of internalizing something, things will change. Things will change around us. We're going to have the world we want to have. And the critical mass, in terms of, I guess, worldwide social awareness, all of this, I don't know what the number might be. The Buddhists say you can do it with like 10 enlightened souls on Earth. I tend to think it's going to be more like hundreds of millions of souls just wanting to do the right thing. Imagine that all at the same time. You would have a radically different world, which is why they're terrified of people of conscience communicating with each other. They'll do everything they can to throw you off. So just thought I'd make a statement on this anniversary, the Fukushima anniversary, 11 years, and 11 is always significant. So look at the circumstance. I recommend Dana Durnford's analysis, which is still, I think, in terms of rational, mindful research, analysis, commentary, one of the best on this catastrophe. He highlights the enormous dangers that and the consequences that have happened, and the continuous consequences to the essence of our existence. And anyway, I highly recommend, if you're not aware of this, like people like Owen Benjamin or those who think he's right, you gotta look into this and not just sort of dismiss it because it's unpleasant. Yeah, you don't really want to think about it. I'm not telling you what to do once you understand and know this. If you don't have any expectations of yourself, you'll be able to absorb the information, take the knowledge, and maybe turn it into some wisdom, lest we forget.